Hi everyone, welcome to my sort of fan commentary. We're doing something completely different than typical Power Ranger fan commentaries. Are you a fan of fan films? Let's do some fan commentaries on what is, on a fan film or so. So for my first fan commentary on fan films or so of Power Rangers, I'm going to tackle the most popular one that's on search results when you YouTube search Power Rangers fan films. And in this case, I'm calling out and tackling and commentating on a fan film or sorts of Power Rangers that it's not clearly a fan film, but it's something that has something to do with Power Rangers that was a huge viral sensation for the last 5 years. Shankar's Power/Rangers Unauthorized. Now, I haven't seen this short film in 5 years after I did a few videos on this before in the past. But for the first time in 5 years, here I am doing a new video about it 5 years after it had blew up the servers of the internet and everyone was talking about it. So you mean to tell me this thing is way better than any other Power Rangers fan-made film out there, and like, especially that came out before this was even a thing? Well, I already have the timestamp on 0, and let's start this thing because I don't have a lot of nice things to say about it even 5 years later. So we open up with something really unusual we don't get for a typical fan film. Oh, I see a Red Ranger sticking the middle finger claw that looked like something from Wolverine's claws. Yeah, and when I look at this, it looks like something out of a video game trailer for like Halo or Call of Duty, but with Power Rangers. Basically, this was the only thing I liked about this, and it's still the only thing I liked. But what I didn't like about it is then when things get really, really unusual and everything goes black, then you know this is not your typical Power Rangers fan-made film project. But personally, I wouldn't really call this a fan film if the people behind it were actual fans, which I wouldn't say they are, because they're still not. The only positives aside from that opening shot was the futuristic looking city stuff that looked like something out of like any sci-fi movie with a post-apocalyptic future setting. I personally don't like the way how they characterized some of the characters from Mighty Morphin. The only one I would say that was the only character in this film, this thing that was made more sense to their original, is Tommy. Everybody else in this thing doesn't remind me of anybody from MMPR at all. Worst off, they recast. Worst off, they had two particular Hollywood actor alums to play two characters we know from Power Rangers, which has upsetted me. The way how they reimagined Kimberly and Rocky, particularly in this thing. Now, if James Vanderbeek was a character not Rocky, like anyone we know from Mighty Morphin, like if this was Lord Zed as a human, as a reformed human with a militant commando type scenario to his character, I could see that. But Vanderbeek, he doesn't remind. I mean, this is not Rocky at all. They name drop his name and think this is how I think of Steve Cardenas as Rocky from the TV series. Because as someone who grew up on Power Rangers, not just Mighty Morphin, but like the entire franchise, and then seeing the progressions of the series with their characters, particularly the MMPR and Zeo and early Turbo characters, the way how they did Rocky with Vanderbeek, this is one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of neither of the two actors. If you like that they're acting for them in this thing, more power to you, but for me, I don't. Also, Katie Sackhoff, if this is supposed to be Kimberly's supposed to be a brunette, not a blonde. I don't get that. Another thing I didn't like about this film is its shtick of killing off characters, because like the whole plot of this thing is, the thing is about the Power Rangers are eradicated by the Machine Empire. Rocky makes a treaty with them to kill them all. And then also, I didn't like the way that short, brief scene with two actors to represent Bulk and Skull if they were shooting up on drugs and stuff. And I didn't like that. I mean, I understand this is for, and also this is not for kids. This is for grown-ass 20, 30, 40-year-olds like us. But the way how they did these characters, I didn't like what they did to neither of the original oh yeah, in the Vimeo version with Zack and those prostitutes, you know, labeled Divatox and Scorpina, in the Vimeo version they were topless, just to let you know with that. Personally, I'm one of the few people in the minority that don't find this hip-hop keto thing very funny. I really don't. I still don't. And I don't get the extent of Zack in this thing. Like, what is he supposed to be? Is he some kind of a action junkie? I mean, this is probably a character trait for the Zack that we got in the 2017 movie, with him being an adrenaline junkie, with Ludi Lynn's Zack. But Ganchi Guba, whatever the fuck his name is, who played the black dude that gets Zack here as the Black Ranger. And you see the Machine Empire, the machine. Oh, and the middle finger. We just saw one. That's 2 times. Well, fuck you too. There's double middle fingers for you, movie. Whatever you think you are. And to think this is supposed to be the Machine Empire. The Machine Empire were supposed to be mechanical, robot, monster-looking villains. Not whatever this is. I mean, the Machine Empire are just a bunch of human-looking people, probably like imposing as Terminator robots, Terminator skeletons. Imposing as humans, probably in the way of how Shankar and Joseph Kahn wanted to do this. And I mean, it makes no sense to me. And then the way how they did okay, now about the Ranger suits. Now they did get the Ranger suits somewhat right, but the only thing I don't still like 5 years later is the way how they did the helmets. The only Ranger helmet we see mostly visible and the only Ranger suit in action is only the Black Ranger. If this was a fan film of Power Rangers that was about the Black Ranger, you know, Zack Taylor, the Black Ranger, the original Black Ranger, I can see that since he took, yeah, and also the thing that took up, that was like what got everyone's attention as soon as he has a gun, and then shoot up people and stuff. I mean, I guess Shankar wanted, this was his vision, but I'm ripping on his vision because I'm calling him out for this. Because personally, I also didn't like the way how you're going to reimagine the Power Rangers in a bloody fashion, knowing to the fact that I don't really find this cool. This is just y'all just being edgy and dark and gritty for the sake of edgy and dark and gritty. And that's what I don't fucking like about this thing. And also the Korean guy in the white, that's not Clank. I mean, Clank, who used to be that Scottish general of King Mondo's Royal House of Gadgetry. He does. I mean, it's not him. And also, they're gonna throw in. I mean, you got characters from Mighty Morphin and only one character from Turbo. But if you're gonna mention this, I mean, the Machine Empire is Zeo territory. Wouldn't it have been common sense to have villains from Mighty Morphin, like Lord Zed and Rita, finding a way to eradicate the Rangers or something? Like Rita and Zed putting a spell on Rocky, or brainwash Rocky to betray the Rangers. And, you know, if Rita and Zed was in this thing, well, Rita is in the thing, but Carla Perez is in a very demented, fanficky looking Rita, which we'll get to at the end. I really did not like the way, personally, back to Rocky again. I understand there are people who are fans of Jason as the original Red Ranger, but, you know, Rocky was the Red Ranger as well after Jason, but Blue Zeo is his own suit anyway, though. But if you're going to do Rocky, you know, they should have did something different with him. I mean, I get that there are people who never liked Rocky as the Red Ranger, and because the whole, you know, known to the fact he should have never replaced Jason. Also, if you got Rocky, what about Adam and Aisha in this thing? Where are they in this thing? Did they get killed off? But no mention on Rocky. You know, you got Rocky, but what about Adam and Aisha? Or any other character from MMPR that probably got sold out and ratted out by this militant commando-looking Rocky. Oh yeah, and then we get the Billy and Trini's thing, and, you know, segues in this. Billy and Trini are both dead off screen. Like, that's the point. And then also, what I get that while this thing is appealing to all of those who like something like this, and for someone who grew up on the original MMPR, you know, I'm not the only one who's into just MMPR, but I watched the MMPR, but I watched all the others. But the way how they, I mean, it feels more like they're trying to pay homage to how pop culture made fun, you know, likes to make fun of what happened to the original Power Rangers after MMPR aired. Particularly season 1, because You know, Kimberly was no slave or nothing, or a sex slave or anything. And also, Rocky was no bad guy or whatever the heck. I don't know where the heck they get this from. And then Zach being an adrenaline junkie, like you think that's what Walter Jones is doing nowadays, being an action sports guy or whatever. And then they have to make they have to make Billy and Trini based off what happened to David and Tui in real life. Like, Tui trained with Trini. Yeah, if Tui Trang is dead, I mean, Trini should be dead. And Billy comes out gay just because David Yost is homosexual in real life. And I don't know whatever with Jason. But anyway, I don't understand. Like, I've seen this thing only now this is my first time in 5 years since I've seen this thing. But I don't really like the way how they characterized some of these characters to be like if this is what the actors of the characters will be like today. If they were like this, and then Tommy being a lone wolf outsider. Well, I guess it makes sense for Tommy if this was about him as well. You know, I feel like you guys are just name dropping names of characters we know on the characters stock, you know, grim dark characters that don't remind me of these characters. I mean, and that's another factor I didn't like about the 2017 movie neither, is that you take the names of characters we know, well, even though Bryan Cranston's Zordon looked like a Zordon, but Elizabeth Banks' Rita doesn't look like the Rita we know. Trini, Zach, and Billy were off in the 2017 movie. I felt Jason and Kimberly were a little accurate by the casting, but Goldar didn't look nothing like the Goldar from the Prime universe. And it doesn't make any sense. Okay, now this fight scene with Jason and Rocky, it just feels wrong. Now, again, if this was this so-called Rocky that Vander Dick is doing, this should have been like someone we knew from Mighty Morphin, like Rito, or like I said, Lord Zed, or if Lord Zed was reformed and he was this. I mean, I can't picture Rocky being this militant badass general and stuff. It just feels wrong. It just feels really wrong. The first time in 5 years since I last seen this in full, I still don't like this. And then the whole plot twist about the Kimberly we had in this thing. Like, it was Rita imposing as Kimberly the whole time. So the Kimberly that was captured the whole time was Rita? And again, the only characters that make sense to their originals is Rita and Tommy. Everybody else, yeah. And Carla Perez's Rita outfit for this thing looks like a really bootlegged version of Angelina Jolie's Maleficent. It's ugly. It's terrible. Whatever you can say. So that was Power/Rangers. This little thing Adi Shankar and them did. But before I quit this thing, I really need to talk about this a little bit. I already paused the film at, around the 13-minute segment timestamp, but looking back on this thing, this so-called fan film 5 years later, out of all Power Ranger fan films that you look up on YouTube, this has the most amount of attention still, because yeah, there's many of you out there in the fandom that wanted a full-length version of this thing. And, you know, this is why I didn't want to support this thing. I don't want to talk about it as much. But from what I've seen when I first saw this thing 5 years ago, this was one of the worst fucking things I would ever see. And you would say, oh, I ain't no real Power Rangers fan. If I was a fan, I would enjoy this if I'm a fan of it. But, well, I'm one of the fans in the minority that didn't like it because it was not Power Rangers. You just name drop characters we know and think this is, you know, I'm going to sell that this lone wolf outcast was Tommy, or this adrenaline junkie who's fucking porn stars named after two particular female Power Ranger villains is Zach and stuff. The Asian girl we never got to know of that got killed off before we even knew jack shit about her is Trini. billionaire homosexual being Billy, because just because David Yost, the actor who played Billy, is gay doesn't mean Billy the character, Billy Cranston the character, should be gay too. Gotta separate the actor from the character. And Jason, they didn't even give Jason not much of a personality in the thing. They didn't even have enough time to flesh him out in this thing. Just, oh, we get a shot of Jason and Kimberly in the truck already happily married, but then he gets off it all before we even knew what the hell Jason was about in this thing. And I just feel like that was like, really? Wow, and I feel like this film still to this day blows every single Power Rangers fan-made film thing, whatever, out of the water. Including my own Power Rangers fan film thing. And yeah, even though to this day my fan film stuff is a joke. Because basically this, basically if I were to do a dark and gritty Power Rangers film, I would have it PG-13. I mean, the only ratings for a Power Rangers movie is either PG or PG-13. Now, who are the people who would love an R-rated Power Rangers movie where they shoot up drugs, have sex, drink a lot, and say curse words like they're superior edgelord badasses, and just because life sucks? This is not the way to portray the franchise. And like I said before back in my legendary battle commentary for Super Megaforce, this whole thing is another piece of Power Rangers non-TV show canon media that disrespected the franchise in a way. And that's why I'm calling out Adi Shankar and the people involved for doing it. Even though this was by Hollywood people who think they know what they were doing with the property, but it's like, I guess they, despite that, a lot of us back in 2010's internet have been talking about a dark and gritty Power Rangers reboot movie for so long. Basically those that are fans of Power Rangers during Mighty Morphin but no longer into it, but want to get back into it only for the nostalgia for MMPR and that only. And then that's why this thing catered to them. But I would say I would recommend this for those who are fans of Mighty Morphin and that only. But for someone who's a fan of the entire general franchise of Power Rangers, I really don't recommend it for people like me who are into the entire franchise and stuff, because I know that I'm going to get some hate comments and stuff for this. But just my point is, as a Power Rangers fan, I hated it. And here I am 5 years later looking back on it. I still fucking hated this thing. I mean, yeah, all that violence, all that cursing, all the drug use, and stock grimdark realistic characters. They don't remind me of the characters I know from Mighty Morphin. This is just completely slash fiction or adult serious grimdark adult X-rated, R-rated, NC-17 rated adult fan fiction of Power Rangers that just went too far with what it did. It just went too far to the extreme with it. And this is why so many years later I still fucking hate this. So you know what? That's it. Fuck you, Adi Shankar. Fuck you, Joseph Kahn.